This is pretty awesome. This is my playground for today, RC drivers. I'm gonna be running the new Losi Super Lasernut. It's a 1/6 scale, ready to run Ultra 4 rock racer, 6S powered, brushless, 4x4 of course, and I think it's just gonna be wild here. But first, let's head back to the studio so I can tell you all about this beast. Look at the size of this thing. It's taking up most of the bench. I actually took out my Super Rock Ray and the 1/10 scale Lasernut, put them all side to side, and this thing is big. I think it's just a touch bigger than the Super Rock Ray. But look at the detail on this thing. They went wild, like Losi's really getting into with their motorsports replicas. This is a replica of Cody Wagner's Lasernut U4 Racer. So obviously we've got a full cage on this thing. It's hinged in the back and there's body clips in the front to secure it. Love the paint work on it. It's very carbon fiber like, and then we've got, you know, the red accents and everything. The logos you see here are all decals, so I guess if you wanted to go pull that off and rock that carbon fiber look, you could do that. But I love the side panels on this. You know, it gives it the look of the vents on the hood and on the sides. And then you get into the interior, you got the driver and passenger figure, full dashboard. It is all Lexan molded. The helmets are a molded plastic, but very good look to it, just adds to the scale details. Fire extinguishers out back, you got the radiator and fans. They even have the air breathers inside for the drivers. What got me when I first saw it was the nets actually. These are just the fabric nets. With Losi bumping it up, we're getting things that are more realistic. And this also has a lot of LED lights on it. So you notice it's got this big light bar in the front. We got the light pods, those actually light up amber. And then it's got the lights in the rear. A couple other details, you got the rear links here. These aren't actually operational. I mean, they do move when you move the suspension, but your sway bar down here, that's what's actually going to take care of your chassis roll. You got your exhaust pipe, faux winch buried in the front, and it actually has another fake winch in the rear as well. The rear spare tire carrier, that looks pretty bulked up, and then it's got a full-size spare on the back with a wing nut to get that off. You're actually going to have to use that wing nut. You're going to have to take this off in order to tilt back the body actually. So they got the two body clips in the front. Once you remove those and the tire, you'll be able to pivot the body up in order to access the batteries. You can kind of leave the tire on and kind of get your hands in there, but this body just drops back down, kind of slap chops your hand. So the best way to do it is to remove that spare tire. Now we need to take a look at the chassis. Here you go, drivers. A look at the chassis and the suspension. A lot of the parts on the suspension are going to look familiar to the Ready to Run 8XE that just came out. That's because they're shared, and that's a good thing because that probably means that part supply is going to be a bit better since, you know, it's shared with multiple cars. So looking at the front here, we got some long travel shocks on this thing. Got some serious ground clearance to it, but the pack feels pretty good. The front shock tower is unique to this because it's got the body mounting system. I did go and throw the 8 Buggy up to it just to see if it was similar, but it is in fact different. Couple mounting spots for your upper link. It looks like the top is actually in a fixed position, but the turnbuckles are obviously adjustables. Same with the steering, and then out to the caster blocks. It's going to look very similar to the Truggy setup that they have. Even the cast steering knuckles, it's a cast metal. And while I was going over these parts, you know, taking everything apart to show you guys, I noticed that there is a lot of slop in some of the suspension, and I noticed that they just went to a shoulder screw setup for the kingpin, and I really like when they use like a bushing sleeve there and a screw because that just gives it a tighter tolerance. And I'm just noticing a lot of slop in this front suspension, so that bothers me a little bit. Down to the suspension arms, again, these are pulled from the 8 Truggy, and these look nice and solid. You got a couple positions to move your shock. There are droop screws in the arms, and then the pins are retained by aluminum plates, and then they've got these composite caps on it. You'll see that they do have sway bars on this, and it's pretty much the same in the rear. Well, I shouldn't say that. Shock wise, you got the long travel shocks, you got a wider rear shock tower, aluminum. These are stamped aluminum towers, and then you got these nice solid looking arms. Again, droop screws in there. The outer hubs, again, pulled from the 8, stuff that we've seen before. This is proven race stuff. Now let's take a look at this huge chassis, this long chassis, and there's nothing too fancy about it. We've got the beveled edges here to help brace everything. No real cutouts in the center. All the screws are countersunk, and as you can see, everything is hex hardware, which we like. It's got the opening for the spur gear. Guys, this is to let rocks out. The rocks come in from the top and they wedge in there, and that's what actually damages your gear more so than any chance of a rock coming in from the bottom. Just want to clear that up because people go nuts over that. They've been doing this for 40 years, guys. Like, that's the reason why it's open. They got a slot on the side here that will allow you to get to the motor mount. I'll get to that in a minute. But they've got this long composite top brace on this thing. That's kind of wild. It might hamper, maintenance a little bit, getting that whole thing off. And it does seem a little bit flexible in some areas. I mean, you really got a torque on it, but they do have lower chassis braces as well, and that's gonna firm everything up. I do like these new side guards. They help key in with the body. You can see the slots here. And then I like this back here. They got a switch mount to make the access to that button a little bit easier. Up in the front, we've got the twin bell crank steering. This is pulled from the Racing 8. It's got an aluminum Ackerman bar on there. And I like that they have the screw clamp thumb nut on top for that servo saver spring. Got a tie rod over here to an aluminum servo horn. This is definitely unique to the car. And then looks like plenty of room to go and mount your 3S battery packs, both of them, because you're gonna put one in the front, one in the rear. You got your Velcro straps to hold it down. Looks like there's plenty of space in there to put different height batteries. The wires that run to the speed controller and to the LED lighting system, nice and clamped down. I did pull those off just so I could show you guys the chassis. But into the drivetrain now. So you got a front, center, and rear gear differential. These are again pulled from the 8, so you're gonna have metal ring and pinions, fluid-filled diffs on this, ball bearings, of course, steel out drives. The center diff, I noticed, has a much heavier fluid on the inside. The front and rear, they do feel like they have a nice thick oil in them. For the drive shafts, you got universals in the front, very cool, dog bones in the center, and dog bones in the rear. All right, now into the electronics. Check out the large scale servo in this. It's definitely gonna need it to swing these larger tires. It's the S905. That is a Metal Gear high torque, kind of standard 5th scale or large scale servo. Then behind it, you've got a Spectrum motor, and it's a 2050 kV motor. You got the heatsink on there, but no fan on that. Definitely would like to have seen a fan. I'm kind of gonna ding them on that. Definitely should have had it in this size of a car, 6S. It's got their latest Spectrum Firma ESC that they've been putting in a lot of their cars. 150 amp smart speed controller, so you do have that ability to use telemetry with this. Check your voltage, see where your battery levels are at. Then of course IC5 plugs, because that's what gives you that telemetry with these little gray wires here. One thing I didn't touch on in the suspension is the wheel and tire combo. So it's got these licensed Raceline 17mm nuts, and that goes along with the copper plated wheels. It's got the smaller outer diameter and the larger inner diameter for the clearance, and then it has licensed BF Goodrich Baja TA tires, and these things are pretty hard. I mean, I think they got an insert on the inside, but it's definitely a hard compound tire, kind of narrow. And the thing, I mean, it's obviously scale. They had to scale this thing up. The only thing I worry about is with a tire this size and on an 8 scale car, I mean, this is a 6 scale buggy and it's kind of an 8 scale suspension here, is this is going to add more leverage to when you hit something. So like when this tire grabs, when you nosedive off of a jump, it's got to add more leverage to the suspension setup, and I'm hoping everything just stays solid. We'll have to see when we test to see if I break anything. Finally, I got to show you guys what else comes inside the box. You're also going to get their DX3 radio system. This is their telemetry radio. That's where you're going to see the battery level through the smart telemetry. And then over here, you got your bag of goodies. They give you some AA's for that radio system, some basic tools, and you get the instruction manual. Definitely read through that. Get yourself up to speed on this bad boy. I gotta throw the body back on and go hit the dirt. This is gonna be fun. Okay guys, it's drive time with the Super Lasernut, and I gotta start off with a flyby here. Watch this, full throttle. Yeah, oh man. This thing is a beast. I've been having a blast with it. This is pack number 3, or pack set number 3, and it's just a monster. Just got to thrash around in this desert-like area. This is about as close as we get to the desert here in Connecticut. But man, look at that thing spray up the dirt. So I think some people were upset that it wasn't an 8S powered rig. And I gotta tell you, 6S is looking pretty sick to me. And with this having the 8 drive line in it, which was built for like 4S, I mean, I think you kind of want to stick with 6S just to make sure the drive line holds up. One thing I did notice about the drive line, it does, you know, have a bit of a whine to it. So I think the gears are set, you know, the way they're supposed to be. There's no extra lash in there that could, you know, blow out teeth or anything. But man, that thing's got rip. Yeah, whoa, major crash. That was absolutely awesome. Hit this jump again here. Oh, uh-oh. Oh. There's a problem. The dog bone just came out. All right, guys, luckily I brought some tools with me, and it looks like I'm able to fix it here just by taking this ball link off, sliding that axle back in, tighten everything back. And this is the berm I hit. I mean, it's nothing outrageous. That's only like a foot tall, and you know, it's just loose sand. But remember back in the studio when I said those tires are adding extra leverage to the front end? I think it's just pushing that arm back and allowing that axle to pop out. All right, let's go have some more fun. Oh, this looks like a 6 spot to rip up. Oh yeah, this is a 6 spot. Perfect for this thing. Yeah, 6S power is pretty good. That's got some rip. The other thing is, it's got a lot of steering with that big servo in there. Love the throttle feel. It's got that smaller pinion on it, gets right up to speed. And still pulls a bit too. That just looks awesome. This washout section here, this is about as U4 as I could get. I'm just gonna blast through this. This has literally been the fun spot where I've just spent most of my time ripping through here. Look at that. But how much fun does that look like? Here's a gnarly rocky section, might get a little air here. Yeah, there we go. Blasting up the hill. That suspension does work pretty awesome. Those long travel shocks, plenty of travel. Keeping this thing pretty stable. This is some rough stuff. This is where it's at. This is the spot. If you got any terrain like this, man, the Super Lasernut, it's just gotta be a killer drive. All right, we gotta see how super the Lasernut is. What do you guys think the speed's gonna be? We're good both ways. Spin this thing around and here we go. Nice and controllable. We got rip. That buggy is moving. Return flight. Look at this thing speed by. Monster. Easy on the brake. Like the new Spectrum system. All right, here we go. 56 miles an hour. That's rocking. Drivers, it was a pretty epic day behind the wheel of the Super Lasernut, and there was a little bit of frustration involved as well. I'll get to that in a minute, but first up, just the drive of the buggy is absolutely intense. This thing's got some power. I know some people were worried that it wasn't an 8S buggy, but on 6S, it is fast. They've got it geared right, but you gotta think this is a fairly lightweight buggy because it's using that Racing 8 platform that TLR has. I mean, yeah, there's some modifications, but it's rather lightweight. The body actually isn't too bad. Do I think the drivetrain can hold any more? Again, this thing was designed for 4S power, and now they've got it on 6S power, and it did sound like the gears were meshed pretty tight. However, I did hear a few clicks when I nosed in hard on full throttle. That leads me to believe that a higher power or a bigger power system may not be for this buggy. Steering wise, that servo, it's got some steering power to it. I have no issues with the steering. Going through the corners with this, you've got these tall tires. They are a hard compound and they actually do pretty well. The suspension was pretty buttery smooth. I think that was my favorite element to actually watch while driving this. Just watching the wheels go up and down, keeping that chassis level. So for the action elements, I mean, they nailed it. So the issue I had with it was the axle kept popping out, and I can't find anything that's actually broken. The arm isn't broken. It was a 95-degree day out, and these are the ready-to-run plastics, I think, so they are very flexible. So when I was hitting those rough ledges of dirt, you know, trying to get some air with this thing, I think it was just taking this tire, pushing it back, bending that plastic, and popping that axle out. And the dog bone actually isn't bent, but the outdrive is pretty well beat up at this point. It's gonna need to be replaced. And I think I'm just gonna go and replace the arm and maybe the caster block as well, because I think it's kind of stretched at this point. And I'm kind of wondering if maybe the racing Losi 8 XDE arms might fit because they're more well braced. So I gotta go and try pick those up and see if those work. If not, I think I'm just definitely gonna get some new arms. The other thing with this buggy is you get a little bit tired of removing the spare tire to take the body off. It's just part of it. I mean, it's a little bit extra process, but it's the best way to do it. They even give you a little instruction sheet in the box that says to take that tire off in order to get the body up. That's everything I found with it, but it is absolutely an action-packed buggy. I know there's a lot of people excited about it. If you're into it, I'll have a link for it in the video description below.